Hi there, Jim here. Today I've got a digital multimeter that I'm going to take through a few basic paces, do a little bit of evaluation. I should mention that I got this multimeter for free through the Amazon Vine program. And so although I'm not paid necessarily for the multimeter or the review, I did get it for free in order to write a review. The multimeter comes from a brand that I have to admit I've never heard of before, Goyerrnes. You can see that that's sort of looks pretty quickly relabeled there. You know, it seems like a decent multimeter. So let's you know, that's the back of the box. It's got a description of all kinds of features here. Of course, I'd have to know which version is in the box, which I'm not quite sure about. And I don't think the box says what version it is. So it could be 39M. That's not any of the versions. Whatever the version was, it's covered up by the Amazon sticker. So let's kind of get into it here. So we have inside here, well, first thing is there's a pair of batteries. So that's a decent thing because the world's cheapest multimeter did not come with batteries. We also have a pair, oops, should not hit the camera. Have a pair of probes. And they seem pretty decent. They have shrouds over the connectors. We'll kind of get into the probes in a little minute. They also have, I noticed, let me get them out of the bag here. The probes have a nice feel to them, and they have little kind of screw points there. So I'm not sure what you'd attach to them, but you could attach something, I guess. So there's a pair of probes, and I guess I'll say that the plastic feels nice enough. You know, they're not the longest probes, but they're not the shortest ones either. So we'll see where that goes. We have in here a manual, digital multimeter operator's manual. And then we have some more stuff in the box. A screwdriver. That's probably for putting the batteries in. The box is empty now. And the meter itself. So this is the GR-39M. And interestingly enough, it's sealed. So we'll rip that open. So it's got a nice rubberized shroud on it, which kind of peels off. Yeah, it would come off if we needed to. We might need to in order to put the batteries in. It's got a stand, which is good. And there's supposed to be some non-skid feet there, although they're not the greatest. So someone was kind of thinking, although, yeah, that's good. Okay. And you can see that that'll hold the probes when they're not in use. So it can hold them like that, or I guess it could also hold them like that, although maybe you'd want to hold them like that. So that'll do. Some buttons there. So I think to do anything else, we'll probably have to insert some batteries. What's interesting is that there's a power, the range. So it's a manual ranging meter, but the range does not include an off. So I guess that's done by the power switch. It says it's auto power off. And we'll have to put batteries in. So we're supposed to read the manual for safety. And there is no strap included, although the box talks about the multifunctional strap. And of course, there is no 39M variation. But in any case, we can kind of just look at the dial here. You can see we'll measure ohms, it's continuity, diode check, it'll measure amps, milliamps, seems to have a setting for testing batteries at 1.5 volts and 9 volts. And then it's got volts, these here being AC volts, and DC volts around here. So, I mean, as long as it's reasonably accurate, it's decent, I would say, as a basic multimeter, and that'll be the true test. Is it accurate, or is it just off? The same as the world's cheapest multimeter, which happened to be not accurate enough for my satisfaction. Okay, so I'll get the batteries in and be back. I thought it'd be interesting to see this part. So I've taken the back off. There were two screws that held the back in place. And one of the things that I'll point out here is that there are actually fuses in this meter, which is a big step up, like I said, from some other multimeter. And the other thing that I see here, which is kind of a nice touch, I have to admit, even if it's not, turns out to not be the greatest multimeter in the world, I have to say it's a nice touch. They've got these brass, reinforcements here that you can see for the screws that hold the back plate in. And so I think that's a nice touch, because that way, if you're like me with these sorts of plastic devices, you end up chewing up the screw holes with those self-threading screws, and after the first 2 or 3 times, those screw holes, well, they're totally useless. So that's nice. And I wonder, maybe one of the things I'll do is I'll see if I can tear it down one more level. There's maybe only one other screw here, so we'll have a look inside. All right, so a little bit of work to get that open. They had to fight a little with the shroud. It's not like they want you to get in here all that often. So we can see in here we got a couple of thermistors. So they think, in addition to the fuses, they think there's actually circuitry that's worth protecting in here. So that's a good sign. They don't think it's meant to be disposable. That's always a good sign, even if they're not the greatest thermistors and there's not a lot of protection. They haven't designed this thing to be thrown away, which is always a good sign. Here we got the shunt. That's to help us measure, I think, voltage, if I can recall correctly. And a lot of the rest of the stuff is just a few, resistors. And what's interesting is there's some, I guess, some bigger surface mount resistors there. So, you know, I would have to say that there's probably some decent design that's gone into this. So I'm hoping to see some decent results on this multimeter. Now I have to say one thing I want to mention here, since I mentioned it before. You can see the screw that is used to kind of seal the deal here. That's just, you know, drilled right into the plastic, so it's really not meant to go in and out of that hole all too often. So this will probably be the one and only time that I take this apart to this degree. The rest of the stuff on the other side is probably not much interest. You know, probably have the contacts for the switch and stuff like that. So all in all, though, I got to say that even though it's not an expensive meter, it does look like it's been well designed. So one of the things I'll have to do is look up who the OEM is for this unit, because it seems to have more capabilities than are exposed. So I'm just going to put that back together, and you can see here the shroud. I mean, nothing special there, just a piece of rubber that goes around it. Okay, so I'm going to put it all back together, pop the batteries in, and then we'll do some basic tests, voltage, resistance, stuff like that. So any test of a multimeter would be incomplete without assessing that thing which all multimeters are doomed to need to do, which is the continuity test. So let's see how this one does on the continuity testing. Okay, so it's on, and I've dialed it into the continuity setting. Okay, and of course all we're going to do is touch the probes together, and you can see that that's not super responsive. So it does work, but not super responsive. So for comparison, just for a second, you know that I've been using the Fluke as the comparison for a lot of these. So let's put the Fluke there, and we'll turn the Fluke on to continuity. And let's see what happens. Okay, every tap, right away. So you be the judge, but not quite the same, not quite as responsive. All right, on to the next test. Now, right now, it's set onto the resistance. So I've got we'll start with that resistance. Then I've got a resistor here. I think this is something like 46K or something like that. So 400K, 4K, 4K. I don't think it'll work, so I think we'll leave it over. It happens to be in the right spot. So we'll put the probes on there. Oh, look at that. I was right. 46.2. And there's a K there. Let's pull off this little piece of plastic. That might make it easier to see. Oh, maybe not. There, that's better. So 46.2 K ohms. Now, just for comparison, I'm going to pull out the sort of big gun here, the old Fluke, put that onto ohms, and you can see that too. You won't see me measure. 46.3 K ohms. So, relative to the Fluke, pretty good job. So, you know, given that it's a resistor, given the accuracy, the 0.2, the 0.3, I would say that's probably fair. Now let's see what we can do with a battery. So I got a Home Depot special battery here. So first we're going to try the voltage. So we've got DC volts there. Get some of that out of the way. So let's see what we get here when we read this. Oops, jumping all over the place. Hold on. 1.56, as long as I can keep the probes attached to the battery. What's going on there? 1.56 volts. Okay. Let's see what Mr. Fluke says. Oops. 1.552 volts. Well, bring in another impartial tester here. Well, tiebreaker, let's say. I have a Unity 61E. We'll put that onto the DC volt range. It's bleeped for us. We'll just cover something up. Running out of space in the frame here. Can't see that for the glare. So let's try what that says. $15522. So looks like the Fluke and the Unity both think it's 155. So I'm going to go with 155. Majority rules. I guess it's a democratic place here. Just going to try this one more time. Okay, 156. So you can see that that's a little bit off. So the truth of the matter will be told when we go through the range. I'll hook it up to the bench supply, and we'll run it through a bunch of different voltages and see what we get. All right, in this part, I am going to, I've got the multimeter hooked up to the bench supply here. Now it's not on yet. I'll turn it on in a second. And so I'm going to run through from 1 volt at a time, from 1 volt through to 20 volts. You know, I mean, I could go a little further, but you'll 20 volts is enough to get the idea of what's going on, and you'll get to see just how accurate or inaccurate the multimeter is. So multimeter fully visible. You can see the power supply. You can see the readings there. So we'll turn it on, and you can see that we're supposed to be outputting 1 volt at this point. Power supply says it's 0.999, so maybe off by 1,000th of a volt, and the multimeter is showing 0.98, or it's blipped to 0.99, so pretty close, right? Pretty accurate. As far as I'm concerned, we'll go to 2 volts. Once again, 1.99, 1.99, so they're both in agreement. 3 volts, 3, 2.99, 4, 5, right? So pretty much the multimeter and the readout from the power supply are in agreement. 6, 7 will go to 10, right? That's settling in. So you can see 9.98, 9.99. Once again, maybe off by 100th of a volt. Not really anything to worry about. I wouldn't be concerned about that. We'll go up to 15 here. 14.97, 14.99. Once again, pretty close, 200ths of a volt. We'll go up to 20 now. see that even the bench supply takes a little bit of time to kind of settle in, and the bench supply is saying it's 1999. We've got the multimeter is showing 1996. Once again, pretty accurate as far as I'm concerned. If we want to get maybe a little bit of a third opinion here, we can get the fluke out. I'll just move these things around. Right, got that on volts. You can kind of see that there. Take these out, put these in. Right, so the fluke is in total agreement with the power supply 1999, right? And the other multimeter is just off. Okay, the right probes. Yeah, these are the right probes. Still on. There we go. You know, 1996. So once again, 3/100ths is the variance. That is really not a big deal at this level, right? That's a tiny bit of error. So totally acceptable as far as I'm concerned. So we saw voltage measurement with battery, with the bench supply. We saw the quick measurement on the resistor. Like I said, it looked totally fine. Let's, for a second here, we'll turn this guy off. We'll look at AC volts. So what I do for AC volts, I know you guys are going to tell me that this is totally unsafe, but I basically, you know, jam the probes into an electrical socket and see if I get 120 volts. So you can see that now. Electrical socket. Oh, wrong range. Over volts there. So put that on the proper range. Okay, 119. So that's pretty close. It could be, that could be the correct voltage, although we've been known to have differences, and so I usually bring the fluke in. It tends to be a little more accurate. Yeah, 120 volts. So the fluke is showing 120, whereas this meter 119. So it is off. It's not super off. It's off by one volt AC. So I wouldn't be totally freaked out by that. Certainly seen worse performance in a budget meter. So all in all, I would say the meter is decent for what it's meant to measure. The only thing I haven't tested here is current, but I don't tend to deal with measuring current a lot. So once again, it's decent. It doesn't measure a lot of things. You know, it's got AC and DC voltage, AC and DC amps, and current, diode check, and continuity, kind of a battery test, although it seems to be more or less just like voltage, so I wouldn't probably use that all that often anyways. For the price, it's decent. It's reasonably accurate, so I wouldn't be upset about using it. I wouldn't be sort of, I wouldn't feel, I would feel confident enough that it's actually giving me a reasonably good reading, as opposed to something that's just totally inaccurate and off the wall that I couldn't really trust. So, although it's a manual range multimeter as opposed to an auto ranging meter, it does do the job. All right, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and please do subscribe.